Have you ever considered how your financial mindset might be cluttering your space and your life? Today, we're joined by Miriam Ortiz y Pino, a pioneer in blending money breakthrough business coaching with professional organizing. In this transformative video, Simplify to Amplify, Money Breakthrough Business Coaching Revolution, Miriam will reveal how transforming her money mindset can lead to a more organized environment and greater financial freedom. Get ready to discover the powerful connection between your wallet and the world. So, Miriam, welcome to the Happiness on Tap podcast.
Thanks, Leanne. I'm so happy to be here.
I have been enjoying getting to know you.
It's been fun.
I'm going to go into that. So, like I said, it's been a pleasure getting to know you. I thoroughly enjoyed our recent conversation at my office. You posed some insightful questions regarding the individuals I help, the nature of my offerings and services, as well as the financial mindset obstacles that have hindered my journey as an entrepreneur and coach. I am your host, Leanne Herron, a certified life and health coach, owner of Finding Resilience with Leanne, and you're listening to the Happiness on Tap podcast, your go-to podcast for uplifting conversations that stir the heart and ignite the spirit. Make sure to like, share, and subscribe for more content on personal development and achieving your dreams. Today, we have a very special guest joining us, Miriam Ortiz y Pino, and that's how to pronounce it correctly, right?
Correct.
Wonderful. Miriam is a certified professional organizer, one of the first in the world, simplicity expert, money breakthrough business coach, and brilliant mind behind More Than Organized. Miriam founded More Than Organized in 2001 to create freedom in her own life. She's an entrepreneur, blogger, TV show host, and creator of the Streamlined solution. Miriam works with entrepreneurs and other busy creative people to craft environments, both internal and external, where you can connect and control, where you can connect the control you crave and the freedom you desire while building wealth through organization. Organization is about more than tidy. It's about who you are and how you want to be. Miriam holds certificates in workplace productivity, residential organizing, courageous coaching method, fire starter session, and desire map facilitator, sacred money archetypes, and the money breakthrough business coaching. With a background rich in certifications like workplace productivity, residential organizing, and courageous coaching method, Miriam has helped countless entrepreneurs and creatives streamline their environments and build wealth through simplicity and organization. So without further ado, let's dive into this conversation that promises to unlock a wave of inspiration and actionable tips for all you go-getters out there. So Miriam, can you start by telling us a bit about your journey and what inspired you to become one of the world's first certified professional organizers?
Oh my. Okay. It's a long story, but I'll shorten it up a little bit. So I decided I needed to work for myself after working for a lot of people and not really thriving in a more structured environment. And so I started looking into what I was good at, and organization popped up. And I looked into the National Association of Professional Organizers at the time, since changed its name, but they were working at the time on creating the first certification that is a board certified certification for professional organizers. And I took the practice exam and it was all wrong. Like the questions didn't match up with the answers. And I had this perspective that was like, I don't know what's happening. So 7 years later, they finally got all their ducks in a row. And I figured at that point, I'd been working in the field for 7 years. And if I couldn't pass the test, I didn't deserve to call myself a professional organizer after giving all kinds of feedback about how the first attempt was wrong. So, as soon as the opportunity came up, I sat for the test and I was one of the first 250 people that passed and was certified. And every year I got to take a bunch of classes to keep up my certifications. I have to maintain CEUs. So I'm constantly learning and evolving. And kind of as a result of that and seeing all the different ways people can apply organizing, I decided I really like working with the creative process, people that are in some sort of creativity, and I have a background in business. So I merged the two into entrepreneurs and creative visionaries. And that's who I love to work with, whether I'm cleaning out their closet or setting up their whole business.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. And I guess I've always been like the tidy side. Like I am meticulous about having a clean, organized house and don't like to live with a bunch of clutter. But I will thank my first like adult uh, boss who taught me how to be organized. You know,
Mhm.
she gave me a file of facts. You know, it had the 1
Yeah.
through 31 and January through December, and taught me that organizational skill.
Hmm.
And just over time, worked with me in developing all these different skills that really benefited me because after 3 or 4 years, I ended up in accounting, which really required, attention to detail and being
Hmm.
organized and meticulous in my files and all of that. So that's really exciting.
Yeah, that's a great point, though. It is a learned skill, and we aren't born organized. It is true that some people's brains process information in a more orderly fashion, and they seek order. So if something's messed up, they'll try to adjust it. But that's not the same as being organized. Organized is about seeing your desired outcome and matching your efforts to get it and kind of wrangling your resources so that you have the things in place to get your desired outcome. It is, and to facilitate ease of your day. It's not really something you're just born with. You have to work at it and tweak it and adjust it based on how you think and how you want to live and who you want to be.
Absolutely. I think my tidiness, of course, came from growing up in a meticulously clean house,
Yeah.
which was great. Like that worked for me and it's carried me and I've always lived that way.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, that's even like my desk, my space, everything has a place. At the end of every day, everything is put away. I start
Mm-hmm.
fresh in the morning. That helps my mental clarity and my focus because I'm not surrounded by papers and piles and
Yes. And when you're lucky enough to have been brought up in a house that was organized and orderly, you develop the habit of that much earlier. So it's still possible to learn if you were not brought up in that environment, but know that it's a habit that has to be practiced and practiced and practiced until you don't think about it anymore. And then you're not wasting energy on thinking about it.
we're definitely going to talk about those habits. You made a name for yourself, not just as a simplicity expert, but also as a money breakthrough business coach. Can you
Mm-hmm.
share with us how you got started in this aspect of your career and what drew you to combine financial organization, like you said, you had a business background, with
Mm-hmm.
your existing organizing principles?
Yeah. So this ties back to what I was just saying too about a household you grow up in. Um, my parents weren't great with money. I mean, they were good with money, but my dad kind of thinks money is the root of all evil, and my mom kind of thinks money just appears magically when you need it. And so when I started my business, I'm really good with money when I have consistent income. But when we work for ourselves, especially in the early days, there can be quite a bit of fluctuation. And I was having a really hard time navigating that. And looking at the information out there about businesses, there's so much if you want to grow a big business. There's so much if you want to grow some sort of medium mom and pop shop with a few employees and stuff. But there was nothing out there at the time about working for yourself, unless you were some sort of speaker or consultant, which is not quite the business model I wanted to have, although I have aspects of it. And so I started seeking out a business coach that could help me figure out my cash flow and how to manage that better. And I just happened to be already coaching on marketing things with Kendall Summerhawk, who developed the money breakthrough business coaching modality. And she was just putting that into effect. And I kind of resisted for years, but because I was in her other group, a guinea pig for a lot of the information. So I began applying this stuff to myself through her. And then in 2020 during COVID, I finally had, enough time to sit down and actually do the certification. And because I work with entrepreneurs and mostly very small business owners, more micro businesses and solopreneurs, it became really apparent that there was a hole in the market there. And that's what I love to do. It allows me to be one-on-one, to share my own experience with the material, and help other people grow their thing without the same friction that I had in doing it. It's been a really nice fit, and I have been able to connect it with their clutter. So typically, if you're frustrated with one aspect of being able to talk about money, it's showing up in your clutter in some way. And that might even be like over tidy, over, avoiding things by making another spreadsheet or instead of picking up the phone to make some money. So it shows up in interesting ways that all have to do with systems and clutter and the environment we're working in. Because it all starts with our brain, right?
Mm-hmm.
Mindset first, mechanics second.
I'm looking forward to learning more about that mindset side because as you and I, talked about my
Mm-hmm.
business,
Mm-hmm.
it really is a labor of love. Um, I was very lucky when I opened my business that there were a ton of resources here in Albuquerque for small
Mm-hmm.
businesses. One of the first things I did was got a score mentor
Mm-hmm.
and worked with him for like 10 months. And he was great. He was a
Mm-hmm.
valuable resource. Threw myself into educating myself to be
Mm-hmm.
an entrepreneur and a business owner. I had the finance side from working 20 years in accounting, but
Right.
it's very different being a staff accountant for, corporate accounting or even nonprofit and having to control your own money and figuring out how to, make it stretch, get the equipment you need, put a roof over your head. Luckily, I had gotten that opportunity. It wasn't my money, but when the lottery opened here in New Mexico, I
Mm-hmm.
was the initial hiring crew. And
Oh,
so we
nice.
basically were the startup. We walked
Mm-hmm.
into a building and that's all it had. And we had to buy all the furniture and, get the bank accounts going and, do all that stuff. So I had that level of knowledge, but it wasn't my money. It wasn't my
Right.
investment. I
It's
had
a little
money to
bit,
spend.
yeah, it's a little different decision level that you go through. Like the decision process is the same, but it's a different level of risk and connection to it when it's your money or not your money. And especially when it's a government thing, because a lot of those you have to spend the money or you don't get it again next year. And so there's this weird, like, if you were working for yourself, you might hold that money, not spend it at this point. So yeah, there's a lot to navigate based on who and how you want to be, what you're trying to create.
And it's a lot to think about. When I first opened my business too, I debated on whether to work from home
Mm-hmm.
or because I had that opportunity. I just
Mm-hmm.
really didn't connect with the concept of virtual coaching.
Right.
It was in early 2022, the world was just kind of getting back into the swing of things.
Mm-hmm.
And for myself and for everyone else who was seeking that connection to people, I didn't feel like virtual coaching would provide me and other people that connection.
Yeah, it is different. It requires a little bit of a different skill set. It works better for me because of the way I work. And uh my favorite way to work isn't necessarily going somewhere and being there for a set number of hours. I'm very ADHD, so I need to be able to hop up and do something completely different for a little while and then come back. So working from home works really well for that, better than the office. But I get both sides of it. Like if you, there's a lot of people that need to go somewhere else to be in that mind frame to
Mhm.
focus. Um, so you just got to work with what your natural tendencies are.
Yeah. And I have the best blessing of both worlds. My
Right.
office is blocks from my house.
Hmm.
I can take my time in the mornings. I set my own schedule.
Right.
So, I get to take my mornings slow. I get to be home in the afternoon. I can come into the office and have that focused attention time because I was so used to working 8 to 5
Right.
um, in an office my whole life. So for me, it was a big shift to be home.
Hmm. Yeah. And it's a big shift to realize that you can get so much more done when you're not talking to people all day long.
Absolutely.
And you don't have to work as long. And that's where freedom starts to come in. It's like, oh, I can get all my
Absolutely.
work done by noon because no one's interrupting me every 5 minutes. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I worked in the legal field for 13 years, so I didn't have 5 minutes to myself.
Right.
So, what is one of the most common money blocks that you see in women entrepreneurs that you coach? And what can we do to break free of it?
Yeah, it's kind of two that are connected. It's the I just want to help people. Money's not the important part. And changing from an employee mindset to a I'm in charge of what I'm creating and I get to make the money decisions however I want them to be. My business can look how I want it to look. It's And they're very similar because if you start your business because you want to help people, you think that looks like a nonprofit or some sort of donation thing, or if I do what I love, the money will come. And there's a small connection there, but really, you got to run it like a business or it will not thrive long term. You will have very inconsistent income. I'm not saying you won't have income, but it'll be very inconsistent. So there is that kind of base level foundation of outreach and marketing and follow up that needs to happen to be able to sustain relationships and convert people that know, like, and trust you into actual money. And if you're running your business because you want to make money, to thrive doing a thing you love, you need to look at it from the if I was in charge, what would I do differently perspective, not from the money's not important. Because if money's not important, don't start a business. Just do your thing. Go volunteer for someone who already has the systems and structures in place. There's no need for the headache of running your own business if you just want to help people. It can be both for sure. I mean, the impact I have on my clients' lives is tremendous and gives me big satisfaction. But that is not the main reason I'm in business. I'm in business to share my gifts with the world and be compensated for that. Um, and I think that that's the biggest one I see with women. They don't they are more hesitant to have money conversations, and so they just I'll ignore it And then they coach that or couch it, whichever way you say it in that meaning. I just want to help people. And that kind of covers the fact that, oh, I'm not actually making enough money to live on, but I'm still doing good work. And I don't want to admit that to myself or to the world. But I would say, I can't remember the exact number. Uh, I read an article that's like 93% of coaches, especially women coaches, don't make enough money to live on. They make less than poverty level. So that's not a sustainable industry until we start treating it more professionally. Like, this is my business and we got to do the things that make that happen.
You are speaking to that woman coach.
I know. That's why I felt comfortable calling you out on it right here in public on a
Absolutely.
video.
Absolutely. I do not have a problem with sharing my story and my learned lessons
Hmm.
because they have definitely been learned lessons. I was very heart centered
Hmm.
from day one, from moving into my office. I had a
Yeah.
very large expense. You got to admire my art hanging on my walls, and I explained that, I hung these gallery rails so that I could
Hmm.
support local artists by
Right.
displaying their art. That was a big expense. I think they cost like $600.
Yeah.
Um, while I got the blessing of being surrounded by this amazing art all day,
Hmm.
it certainly wasn't making me any money.
Right.
Um, and so the first year of my business, I really threw myself into wanting to help everyone else, all my friends that were artists and
Hmm.
entrepreneurs, and let me support your business. Let me host events at my office. And I was hosting like business after hours events where they would come
Hmm.
into my space and talk about their business and
Hmm.
then have networking. But the attention was on them. And
Right.
I even hosted like a pop-up market for
Hmm.
artists. And the morning of the pop-up, my sister-in-law stopped by and she's like, "Where's your table? Where's your stuff?"
Oh no, you forgot to set up your own table?
I was so focused on everybody else
Yeah.
that hadn't even crossed my mind, because that's how I was raised. I was raised to be a
Yeah.
people pleaser, to put everybody else before me. What I needed, what I wanted didn't exist, didn't matter. So it was
Yeah.
really hard for me to switch. And I'm still today
Hmm.
struggling with that.
We all do. These social cues are so ingrained. I mean, I'm not okay. I come from a family of do-gooders, and I am not that. Like, I'm the person in the family that they go to last for anything that involves volunteering my time. I will give money. Like, I'd rather be a philanthropist than a do-gooder because I can walk my talk through running my business more than I ever could get that message out when I volunteer or jump into someone else's endeavor when it's not asked for. So it goes back to the whole put your oxygen mask on first. There is a reason we have to take care of ourselves first. And I'm not saying, and we've mixed up self-care. Self-care isn't getting your nails and your hair done and getting fancy makeup. It is actually resting and recharging so you have the energy to help people in whatever way you've chosen to do that. And when all you do is take care of everyone else, you are neglected and not recharging, and that battery will not recharge at a certain point until you totally shut down. We're a machine. We are a machine of cells hosting a soul, and that's all we've got. You gotta work with that. You gotta take care of the vessel, or it's not gonna work long term.
Yeah, I wish I had had one person who had ever told me that in my lifetime,
Right.
because I
It's
didn't know that concept. I didn't know about self care. I didn't know about operating on a full cup or an empty cup
mhm.
until I literally hit the wall,
Right.
and I didn't even have grounds in the bottom of my cup, because
That's
I had done and done and done and done for everybody else until I just didn't have anything left.
unfortunately, that's how we're taught these days. And it's not good. I will say that. I've always lived the alternative to traditional life in terms of how I've worked, where I've lived, relationships, and that kind of thing. So it doesn't always translate to me, but it still shows up to me. Like I still have those days where I'm like, why did I help this person do that thing that I didn't have the bandwidth for? Why did I say yes to that thing? And so it's constant adjusting about it. But once you realize, it gets easier to say no.
It is, and I'm working on it.
Yep.
I've recently made some phone calls and said, you know what, I'm not gonna host events
Mhm.
for the rest of this year,
Right.
maybe longer, because I have put off my own business
Mhm.
for far too long. And
Yes.
I need to have that focus and have that income coming in
Mhm.
before I continue to, help everybody else. So it's been a very learned lesson for me.
Yeah, and think about how much more helpful you will be to those artists and, pop-up people when you have a bigger list of relationships that you've built as a result of building your own business. Now you're bringing new, fresh eyes to each event for the people. But if you don't have that background, you're just getting their same people over and over.
Again, wish I had had somebody to tell me these wonderful things. So keep preaching.
I was here and now you found me.
Right when I need you. Absolutely. So we're going to go into my next big struggle,
Hmm.
um, about how us women undervalue or are not good at pricing our services,
Hmm.
and how might that reflect how women value themselves. I know my issues.
Yeah. So think about it. When you worked for someone else, you took what they gave you. You didn't really question it. Most women never ask for a raise. Um, or they ask for it in a way that doesn't demonstrate their value to their boss. They think that um, the boss should just know that they're valuable. They don't speak up for themselves. So, this is the chance to value yourself and start looking at what you bring to the world as you and your gifts and your knowledge and your wisdom and your experience. It is not necessary to start figuring out how much you're going to charge by saying, well, this is how much it costs. And then adding 4%. That's ridiculous. And that's what people do. And that's the margin of a grocery store. That is not the margin of someone running their own business. So don't forget. And a lot of women have a spouse or something. So that automatically already takes care of their health insurance and their other benefits. And they already have a roof over their head and they're merely contributing. No, no, no. Run your business as if you were alone and creating your own independent money that you can contribute to your household. Don't think of it as extra spending money or just for the vacation or just for the new car every 3 years or whatever that is, or just for the tax write-off. You, if you're running a business, need to run it like a business. So think like a boss. Think like a person who makes decisions, but from where you want to be, not from where you are now. And that is really hard because you don't know what that is yet. But you have to start imagining and projecting yourself. And so I don't necessarily say where you want to be, but from who you are. If you were in charge, what would you do? If money were out of the equation, what's for just a moment, reflect on how you would like your business to be and how you'd like it to run. And then think, oh, well, how much money will I need to do that? That's how much I got to make. Or think about how, don't ever calculate based on hours for dollars either. If you're a service business, we got to look at results. What are the results, the long-term results? So, for instance, when I work with someone, let's say in their pantry to organize their pantry, it's not about the fact that now everything is in pretty containers and lined up and all the baking stuff is on the same shelf. That's lovely and that saves people time. But it also saves $400 a month on groceries on average. And it also teaches them to uh, think of meal planning and grocery shopping differently, which saves them more time, which gives them the opportunity to share these skills with their family, which is invaluable. And it gives them less stress. And so there's all these layers to the value of what you're bringing to the table that need to be factored into your pricing structures. But stop thinking like an employee and letting the market dictate. And it's connected to, people are like, well, they won't pay that. Well, how do you know? Well, I wouldn't pay that. Well, your service isn't for you. You've already got this down. Of course you wouldn't pay for it. You need to figure out what your ideal client will pay. And you don't know that till you ask. And what is in someone else's wallet or what they will spend their money on is actually none of your business. You will never have access to all the factors involved in someone deciding whether or not to hire you. So all you can say is, I can bring these things to you if these are things you struggle with. Is that of value to you? And this is how much I think my other clients, and I've noticed in my own life, it's probably valued at. Is that okay with you? And then you start learning where the sweet spot is. But deciding ahead of time, stop assuming, ladies. We do not know how other people feel or what their resources are. I have people that make hundreds of thousands of dollars that don't have a dime in their wallet because they don't know how to manage their money. And I have people that live paycheck to paycheck that have, fully funded 401k. So you can decide how you want to approach your money.
Again, stuff I needed to hear. I'll tell you.
Nice.
I came from, and I even realized I was doing it. I used to cap myself
Mm-hmm.
when I would interview for my next job
Right. How much do
because
you want to make? Oh, like 5 cents more than I make now.
mine wasn't that bad, but it was, every new job I would tell myself $5,000 more than I'm making now, which
Right.
over, the year is about that 5 cents. But I knew my value. I knew what I was good at. I knew what I could do. But when you're applying for a job and they have the salary range listed,
Oh, well,
and
that's
you're
just to weed out. That's so they can get away with it. That's not so that they won't pay someone who values themselves and brings a lot to the table more. That's so they could get away with less if they had to.
mm-hmm. And I could walk in and know my value. Like
Mm-hmm.
I knew what I could do for you
Right.
without a doubt. And I
Mm-hmm.
could get that job every time.
Yeah. But you
But
weren't making as much money as you could have.
no, but I
Yeah.
would cap myself. So I'd go on to the next job, cap myself, go on to the next job, cap myself.
Yeah.
And so then becoming a business owner, as you stated, in my mind, it was still dollars for hours.
Yeah.
And so, I started with what was my last hourly salary.
I just want to replace my salary. Well, that's great, but you also got to replace your benefits and your overhead.
Yeah.
Bottom line,
Yeah.
it's costs more to be a small business per, the relative measurement of profit because you got to take care of all that back end stuff.
Yeah,
Yeah.
boy, you really see, you feel it in the checkbook when you go from working in an office like I did for my entire life and having an abundant supply of everything I needed, every color of pen, every color of
Right.
post-it, boxes of paper on the floor for the copy machine, to
And
now
now,
watching my printer icon when it comes up and tells me I'm about out of ink, and I'm like, oh my God, $35 for a little bottle of ink that's going to last me no time at
2 weeks.
all. Or
I know.
yeah, and paper and envelopes and stamps, and it's like, okay, this is
Yeah.
a different.
Those apps and software add up every year too. You gotta decide how you want to run your business and then make your decisions. Yeah.
Yeah, so I know I'm going to need to work with you because I got some mindset issues, especially around money,
Yeah.
I need to work on so that I do get my focus where it needs to be to make my business excel the way I want it to.
Yeah. Bring in your mind into alignment with what your overall goal is, your personal vision and mission makes it all much smoother.
Absolutely. So let's get super practical about money and running a business.
Okay.
What is one of the key habits you use to run a profitable business?
You got to know your numbers. You have to know how much money you're bringing in every day, revenue. And you need to know how much you need to cover your expenses. Um, I like to set my goals as this is the minimum amount I'm willing to have this month, and this would be comfortable level, and this would be optimal level. And I always strive for the optimal. Um, but it helps you stay oriented. So this is one of the things I learned from Kendall and doing the money breakthrough business coaching. If you are running a business, you need to be agile. You need to be able to adjust. So when something unexpected happens, you can deal with it. When you only look at your books once a quarter or once a month because you don't like money and I don't want to, I don't know enough, whatever your excuse is, if something's happened, you can't adjust. It's already happened. You're more in the hole because something happened. If you are looking at your revenue every day and you know what your monthly expenses is, you know you need to make 20 more calls next week to get more income in. You know you need to put out another offer so that you can bring in some revenue to cover the expenses. You know, because you're looking at your balances more regularly and you can adjust within 24 hours, not within 3 months. So some things make sense to look at quarterly, other things monthly, some things weekly, but your revenue versus your expenses, you should glance at that every day so that you're adjusting.
Yeah, I do.
Yep.
I do know my numbers. That's one thing I'm solid on, thanks to
Yeah.
20 years in accounting. It's the making like I recently launched a new offer.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it's sitting down, doing that stuff. But then I live in that mindset, what if nobody buys? And
What if everybody buys?
I'm watching watching the clock, watching the days count down. Nobody's bought. What did I do wrong? It's just those normal mindset.
Right. I struggle with that too. I mean, I literally just did a big offer based on a bunch of research and tweaking some stuff, and I had one person sign up. But what I didn't do was beat myself up because I did a much better job at promoting it. I understood the whole process differently. I um am practicing my delivery with the one person. They're getting excellent one-on-one coaching while we go through it. Um and I realized that it's not that I didn't do it right, it's that I didn't do it all. And I can't do it all. So that's where you may need to bring people in. How can I make the offer better? How can I fix my messaging? Am I in front of enough people? Do I need to advertise or bring on affiliates or bring on partners that are going to talk about it differently. There's a bunch of different things that might be the thing. None of it has to do with you're not good enough. It has to do with I'm practicing and this version needs a little tweak somewhere. We'll do it again and you do it again. And each time is a little different. Um, so it's people are waiting for what you have to offer and you got to put it out there. And if it doesn't land, it's because you're not in front of the right people or it's not the right offer at this time. We're so distracted, so inundated with information that they're going to take a while to realize, oh, Leanne does this thing. It's great. It's not a good time for me right now. Or, oh, I already have my budget set for this quarter. Or, all these other things that are the actual practical reasons that have nothing to do with you. And if you offer it again 3 months from now, it might be different.
Yeah. It,
Yeah.
it, it is, again, it's a learned process. I made a bunch of digital products, but everything I do, I'm going towards the right goal.
Uh-oh.
We kind of, there we go. Um, we paused for a brief second, but we're back. Can you hear me okay?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Um,
Yes.
so I've been doing the work, putting in the things in place to
Right.
bring in passive income. I do a lot of affiliate marketing, so I have money coming in from that. I know what I need to do to push that stuff out so that I do make money. Um, Created a bunch of digital products, hosted a seminar,
Mm-hmm.
kept the costs super low, thinking, one, I don't want to give it away for free because people don't.
Look at you and other people's wallets again.
I know, making that assumption for other people.
Yeah.
But I come, it's that heart center. Like
Right.
I feel bad for people who are also struggling, and I'm trying to help them get out of this struggle.
What if you empower them by modeling better behavior and better mindset?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. There's always a different perspective to our self-talk.
Oh yeah. And I will tell my clients what they need to do, and their response is, I'm always telling my friends the same thing, but I don't listen to what I say. I don't walk the walk.
Yeah, you have to. It changes everything when you start embodying what you're actually preaching. And it's not easy, but you start with baby steps and you practice, and then all of a sudden one day you realize, oh, I've got that part down. Now I can work on this other part.
That's what
Yeah,
I'm doing. I'm working on all the parts.
right. We all are.
What gets in the way of people being more productive,
Mhm.
staying organized, and making more money?
Not knowing who and how they want to be and knowing what they want. So there's a lot of people in the world. And granted, there's kind of three different ways our brains process information. People have like their go-to processing thing. So for some people, it's easier than others. I will give you that, but it's possible for everybody that you need to be able to look enough in the future that you can determine what you want instead of just putting your head down and doing the next thing on the list that someone else gave you to do. So it's a little bit tied to, are you entrepreneurial enough to be an entrepreneur and run your own thing? Maybe, maybe not. I actually don't think everybody's cut out to be an entrepreneur, but can you bring yourself and who and how you want to be to whatever your job is? If you're in a job or not, or if you're running your own business or not, if you're retired, if you're just entering, what are you bringing to the table other than the job description? And that automatically will help you be more successful because you are working towards becoming more you. not becoming who someone else wants you to be.
Ooh, I love
Yeah.
it.
Sometimes I'm very wise and then I go, where did that just come from? But yeah, I think that's where people go wrong. They try to please other people and not think through how and what they want to do.
Yeah,
Everything's figure outable, as Marie Forleo says, and everything has a solution, and our brains love to puzzle out solutions. So listen to yourself.
yep. I
Yeah.
just took some focus and realizing where my energy was going, realizing where my energy needed to be,
Hmm.
um, staying in that boundary,
Right.
because it's so super easy to
Hmm.
open my mouth and offer to do something for somebody else.
Yeah.
I can meet somebody and I can immediately go to how I can help them, but
Yeah.
it's not how can I help them as a coach. It's just how can I help them succeed. But it's
Or how can I fix it for them? I do like how to help them succeed better than fix it, but
yeah,
there's a lot of people looking to be fixed. And so I think especially as coaches, it's easy to jump in and tell them what they're doing wrong. I struggle with that. Um, but how can we empower them to listen to themselves to figure it out? And sometimes that's sharing other points of view, but that's because people have a hard time imagining their own futures.
mm-hmm.
And so when you ask them, it's kind of blank, not because they're um, ignorant or stupid, but because their brains actually don't process information in that way. And for those of us that can see the future easily, it can be frustrating to get them there, but it's totally possible. You just got to take a few different steps along the way.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
This is one area I don't struggle with, but I know there are people who do.
Hmm.
Do you have a trick or a suggestion to help people stay motivated during the organization process or other big projects?
Yeah. So this ties back to the last question as well. In terms of organization is what you need to support your endeavors. So whatever activities you are involved in, you've got to factor in the time, energy, environment, place, equipment, like what are the things that you need to get that done? Um, and what it doesn't feel motivating because people jump in without thinking about that reverse engineering aspect of it. What's the desired outcome out there? Is it to set up an office that practically runs itself? Is going to look different than I just need to set up a space to do my podcast from versus I just want to help people. So let me just start talking into the camera. Like there's kind of three different levels of thinking that through. And if you just want to help people and you jump in that way, you're going to forget to set up the systems and then you're going to recreate the wheel every week and you're going to waste a bunch of time and you're going to wonder why it doesn't work. And then you're going to realize because you didn't put the form on the website or you didn't do the thing, you forgot to make the offer. Like all the little things that fall through the cracks because you jump into action before tying it to what's the desired outcome and then reverse engineering it so that you set up workflows that help you achieve what you want to achieve. And the organization that is currently on display on all the socials has nothing to do with workflow. It has to do with busy work. Throwing everything in your fridge into containers and fridge scaping, adding 27 different scent beads to your laundry, nothing to do with workflow. It has to do with avoidance and busy work. So when you think about it, think about what are you trying to achieve and what's the shortest path to get you there, to get you in motion, and then adjust as you learn more by doing the process. That's what I would, that's the connection I think people fail to make. What are you trying to achieve? Why are we organizing this? Because it's messy. Okay, well, why do you want it to not be messy? Oh, so I have more free time, or because I'm overwhelmed with the amount of stuff I got to do. Okay, well, what do you want to do instead? What would you be doing instead? What, like start asking your questions.
Mm-hmm.
Like, why is this? And that's what keeps you motivated, because every time you get in the messy middle, you can say, why am I doing this? This is hard. This sucks. It's boring. You can say, oh, because I want that. That's why I'm doing this. I'm getting there.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's definitely going to go into our next question. I am very goal driven.
Mm-hmm.
I am also very kind of analytical in my workflows.
Right.
And luckily, school, my certification gave me those,
Yeah.
to create a signature coaching package. It has the
Mm-hmm.
scripts, the steps, the order in which it needs to be done to really see, to help people achieve their goals, their desires, their needs, and, learning how to ask the right questions.
Right.
It was there. It was absolutely prepared, taught, practiced. So I had the roadmap.
Right.
And that was so valuable. Without that roadmap, I would have been anywhere and everywhere. So
Mm-hmm.
even from day one, hiring somebody to create my website, I had the roadmap of
You knew.
exactly
Yeah.
what I wanted it to say, how it represented me as a coach,
Mm-hmm.
um, my offer, and how I could help people. I mean, it was very black and white.
Yeah.
Um, and then I weeded it down, because it
Mm-hmm.
was too big, too broad, too much. I have a
Right.
tendency to write in paragraphs and books. Um,
Me too. I am queen of the run-on sentence.
yes, my husband will say the same thing.
Oh,
Um,
wait, there's more.
yeah, I can type until the cows come home and give you everything.
Mm-hmm.
So yesterday when Barbara was talking about, you don't have to give them everything. You have to leave them wanting more.
Yes.
That was something that I went to Barbara and Norm and kind of did some exchange stuff with them and said, hey, can you take a look at my website and help me find brevity in my website? It's too much.
Yes.
It's too overwhelming. People aren't going to want to sit and read all this stuff. They just want to know what their problem is, how you can help them get there in the shortest
Mm-hmm.
amount of time, so that's been a process for me as well.
Yeah. It's hard.
It's hard.
Very worth it, but hard.
Yeah, and it's hard to take stuff off. But I find that when I can just like grab an entire section and just click delete this section,
Right.
that I feel so much lighter
Mm-hmm.
and more focused. And I can look at my website and be like, oh, it's not all cluttered and just full of letters.
Right.
It all makes logical sense. It answers the right questions. It has a direction for who I want to help. So,
Yep.
yeah, it takes work.
It does. It's good to pull professionals in to help with those things too. I can never see the problems with my website in real time. Like I will be looking at it, I'm like, oh, it's great. And then like 3 weeks later, I'll look at something and be like, why did I choose that? Um, but when you have someone that'll look at it for you or a few different people, it can help point out the stuff you're not seeing.
Yeah. And
Yep.
I also appreciate the people, and I am one of them, that if I see a blatant typo or I
Mhm.
see like a broken link,
Right.
I will pick up the phone and I will call you and say, hey, I tried to register for this. Are you aware that your link is broken? And
Right.
most people
That
are like, I didn't even know,
Yeah. And yeah, just we were talking about it when we started today. Things change so fast. So it can work when you test it. And then 2 weeks later, some update causes it to not work anymore. You got to be proactive, people. When you find someone you like, let them know.
Absolutely. I appreciate those people. I'm one of those people.
Mm-hmm.
So, from your perspective, from what you do with
Mm-hmm.
working with people, what is the differences that you see between somebody being goal driven
Mm-hmm.
or having goals and giving them, teaching them the habits to put in place to achieve those goals?
Yeah. I think there's been a lot of talk out there that mixes people up in terms of what's the difference between a desired outcome and an objective slash goal. And so goals and objectives are very much the tasks or the projects that need to be completed to attain the desired outcome. And so people will finish a goal and then be like, well, why don't I feel satisfied or fulfilled? I did it. It wasn't what I expected. It's because you didn't tie it to your desired outcome. What is the feeling or the new state you were trying to achieve by doing this work in the first place? If you can't make that connection, you're doing a lot of busy work. And so you get more and more kind of worn down and not feeling that feedback of the fulfillment and the satisfaction, and that was worth doing. Um, I think that's probably the biggest thing. Yes, you need to develop habits, but habits are not for attaining goals. Habits are for relieving your brain of energy expenditure. So you want to create routines that support your work that get you to your desired outcome. The routines are the habits. We brush our teeth every day without thinking about it. That's a habit. Showing up and answering your email at the same time every day, that's a habit. Outreaching or doing a reel every week is a habit that you can get into that makes the overall thing feed your business or feed your life. I think that's the biggest mistake. They think the habit is the important part. It is the means to the goal or the objective that gets you to your desired outcome. It's a way of making that objective easier. You can do all kinds of objectives and reach all kinds of goals without having habits. It's harder, takes a lot more energy. You're recreating the wheel if you have to do it again. And some goals are kind of one offs, and some are so repetitive, it's essential to turn them into a routine. So you got to know what kind of habit you're trying to create in the first place. And then how does it serve the objective that gets you to the desired outcome?
Love it.
Yeah.
Love it.
It's way more complicated than people want to make it out to be, but it's also way easier than people want to make it out to be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Those are things that I'm pretty good at, putting those routines in place so that I don't have to think so hard.
Right.
And the other thing that really helps me as I'm working towards my desired outcome
Mm-hmm.
is to celebrate the little things along the way.
Oh, yeah. That feedback loop is so important and we don't do it, especially women do not celebrate. I always start my coaching sessions with what are we celebrating today? And the number of blank stares and
Mm-hmm.
looks I get from women about, I don't even know. It's like, oh my God, did you make your bed today? Like it can be that little,
Mm-hmm.
but it's the feedback loop that, sorry, makes it seem to your brain, it teaches your unconscious brain that you finished something, you completed something, you are capable, and now you have more proof that you can try something you haven't tried before and be successful at that too. It helps the more of those things you remind your brain that you were successful at, even if it's little, the more you're able to do more in the future.
You froze. I don't know if you moved too
Uh-oh, you
much.
froze again.
So did you. On the topic of, celebrating your wins, I think that is something that was so vital for me
Mm-hmm.
um, as I was going to school, because prior to that, as we were kind of talking about, brain fog, memory loss, all of those things,
Mm-hmm.
for me it was a trauma response that I had never experienced before in my life. So I didn't know what that
Mm-hmm.
was. I didn't know where that came from. All of a sudden, I felt like a giant etch a sketch. Couldn't remember people's names. Couldn't remember doing anything. Um, and I was also unemployed because I left the legal field permanently
Mm-hmm.
because of the trauma that I sustained there. Was taking time to heal.
Mm-hmm.
And so in that, I found becoming a certified health and life coach.
Mm-hmm.
And I I knew that I didn't like the way that I felt, but I kept telling myself, well, if this is my new norm, then
Mm.
I need to relearn what I've forgotten. And
Yeah.
as I allowed myself to take that uncomfortable action and enroll in school and started to do the work, the confidence itself, as it was building, the clouds were moving on. And
Yes.
so taking the time to celebrate, and I would do it, once a month, like clockwork. I had a calendar that I kind of kept with what I'm doing, what I'm learning, what classes I took, what
Mm-hmm.
things I had put into place. And I would celebrate those things on social media so
Yeah.
that not only was I celebrating it for myself, but I was putting it out there for other people to see that you need to celebrate even the smallest thing. Like you said, like I got
Yeah.
out of bed, I made my bed today.
Yeah.
I did a dish. Because sometimes that fog is so heavy
Mm-hmm.
that it's hard to even get off the couch.
Yes. You got to celebrate every little piece of it. Yeah.
Absolutely. It was 100% vital for me. And it is something that I still do every month.
Yeah. And just to build on that, it's important to celebrate the effort, not necessarily the completely perfect finish. I struggle with completions, so I celebrate hard for completions of projects. But I also celebrate all the little things and the fact that, oh, I actually worked on it 4 days last week. I didn't finish, but I put in consistent effort. So know where you struggle in your celebrations or your consistency or your um, distraction and celebrate the things that help you overcome that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. How do you decide what to spend your time on?
Mm. I have my desired outcome and I am easily distracted. I have a gazillion ideas and I can always see how they all connect. And so my tendency is to kind of scattershot and work a little bit on each part. And it's been the last 2 years I've really tried to focus in on sequential focus and finishing this part and then doing the next part and then doing the part after that. You get so much more done. You actually finish things more completely, more perfectly. Um, and then you know what's wrong when you connect the next piece. Like this part's working, going to connect this piece. Okay, is it working? Do they work together? Which part needs adjusting before we add the third piece? It's like train cars. How do you make sure all the brakes are off? So that's my biggest struggle is making sure I'm not working on too many things at the same time. Um, my overarching mission in life is to simplify. And so I'm looking to build a simple, exquisite life. And that means not a lot of busy work. It means very clear focus, attention to detail on a specific thing one at a time. Um, it doesn't always look like fast, scalable growth, but it's been consistent overall growth and more satisfaction in my own life. Yeah.
Yeah. Um, I was telling you when I would interview for jobs and I went in and I knew my value, multitasking was one of those things. Like
It's not a value. It's a mistake.
I was good at it though. Like
Yeah.
nothing, I could do it all because I was very organized,
Mm-hmm.
detail oriented. I lived on a calendar, working in the legal field, you always had deadlines
Yeah,
and
you
I
had a
would do
safety net.
sub deadlines, so if something was due on the 15th, I had a 12th, deadline to remind myself it has to be done by this day. And I
Right.
could work around that. That was very easy for me. Like
Mm-hmm.
I could stay on task and get all these things done. But when the brain fog rolled in and shifting from working for somebody to working for myself,
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't as strong in
Mm-hmm.
those things. Although, I'm now it's like I have a notebook of my to-do list and I have my calendar and I know when it needs to be done and I can work that way.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm much more do one thing at a time
Mm-hmm.
than try to do 10 things at one time.
Yeah. Multitasking it's controversial. I used to be that way too. I believe that I have two thoughts on it. One is that women are actually wired to multitask a little more naturally because we have kids surrounding our apron strings, or however you want to phrase that. I don't have kids, by the way. But hormonally, there are connections to brain fog as well. And I think as we enter middle age and menopause and the hormones change, that multitasking isn't necessary as much anymore. And so we lose it. And we've been doing it for so long that our brain is wired a little bit wonky and it takes a while to retrain it to the sequential focus. Um, but yeah, it's so much better to just be like, hang on one sec, let me finish this. I'll come back to you in a second. Or, talking to yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Hang on, thanks for the input. I'll get there. Or the getting things done, uh, put it in the parking place so you can come back to it later. And having a safety net of your calendar and to-do list and having that system of how you use it to catch you when interruptions and distractions occur to keep you on point and on task are key. Surprising number of people do not have that skill and think multitasking is good and keep it all in their head. And then when it falls apart one day and it's a big catastrophe, they have a hard time recovering. I think more businesses probably fold from that scenario than anything else.
Good to know.
Oh, we all of a sudden got busy and we didn't have systems and we can't keep up with the orders, so we have to close.
Yeah, makes
Or
sense.
we didn't have a system in place to get consistent people to come in to buy the things and we had to close. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, those things need to be somewhere in my calendar as well. Consistently to bring people in
Right.
so that I can do all these other things that I love to do and want to do.
Yeah. Turns out it's all about the traffic.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
One last quick question, then we're gonna, close this out.
Okay.
Why do people hire you?
Because they forgot to put systems in place and now they're overwhelmed and they recognize that they don't even know what to do next to fix it. Um, or they just like my bubbly personality, one or the other. I don't know. It's usually because they're overwhelmed, whether it's with information or not knowing how to fix what's going wrong.
Yeah, I get that.
Yeah. Unfortunately, it's not a magic pill. And you should have called me 3 months ago to avoid it at all. But we can work with it wherever you come in.
So tell people where they can find you because
Mhm.
it, we can't help people if they can't find us, and
Right.
about any free resources that you have.
Yeah. So the hub to find all the places you can find me is my website, morethanorganized.net. I have a variety of free resources on there. under my resources tab. Upcoming, I run a masterclass, a free webinar masterclass a couple times a month. We're moving into essential business systems for the next bit of time. So that's coming up. And I have a 1-minute mail solution roadmap of how to organize the information that we're inundated with, whether it's paper or email. That's free on there as well that you can sign up for.
Yeah, I've been getting those emails. They're
Oh,
very
good.
helpful. I'm
Good.
fine with the paper, but definitely the emails.
Yeah. It's all the same thing, it turns out. It doesn't have to be separate.
Yeah. I'm
Yeah.
just a paper person, so
Yeah.
for me, the paper's the easy part to deal with and put it away where it belongs.
Yeah.
It's so quick and easy how emails can just stack up and stack up and stack up and stack up. And then all of a sudden you're being notified that you need to pay money to have more room because you haven't taken care of those emails. So I've been reading
Yeah.
your thing and it's very helpful.
Just imagine your email is the same thing as walking to the corner to get your mail, and you got to throw out the recycle and the junk
Absolutely.
every day. Just delete, 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 delete all the irrelevant stuff.
And unsubscribe and unsubscribe and
Yes.
unsubscribe.
And recognize that every time you sign up for something, you will need to resubscribe, unsubscribe again. Yep.
Absolutely. So thank you so much, Miriam. It has been an absolute pleasure speaking with you. You have shared some great value with my listeners. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in.
I
Uh-oh.
have mosquitoes.
Oh, no. Thank you, everyone, for
All right.
tuning in to the Happiness on Tap podcast. Stay tuned for more inspiring conversations. And remember to keep the happiness flowing in your life. And you can do that by being more organized. So if you need to reach out to Miriam, by all means, do that. Uh-oh, we froze again.